today we're talking about burnout, which is great because burnout is one of those things that's fresh on my mind. For one thing, it's something I just experienced to a rather high degree not long ago, within the last couple of months, actually. And that's when it came to a head. Anybody who was here last week during the stream got a little bit of insight into kind of what I've been dealing with during my time off and why that came about. And that is going to lead us into today's stream too, where we're going to talk about burnout, learn about what it is, learn about, what it looks like whenever it hits, what we can do to help, and, some things that we as gamers, or me as a gamer, because I'm going to share a lot of my experience here alongside the learning I've done to help me through these times where I'm suffering a lot from the burnout. So hopefully you guys can get something out of this. Hopefully you can learn something from this stream, and we'll have some fun while we're doing it too. So it should be pretty cool. The mods are going to help us out today. So be aware, if you're responding to the question of the day, I'm not going to be able to get to it until we're done with this segment. So please be patient. If you have any questions or need any additional information about what we're talking about, what's going on, the Keepers of the Fence are going to be here to help. And they're going to be sharing some information with you about burnout so that you can learn a little bit more than just what we're talking about here today. But also, we're going to link you to an article that I'm using to supply this talk today. And that means that because I'm reading from the same information and using it to move the conversation along, you're going to be able to follow along with me if you would like to do that too. So follow that link that's in the chat right there. We're going off of a WebMD article about burnout. And I'm also, like I said, going to be putting some of my own personal experience in here too to kind of help illustrate what some of this can look like and what I've done to work with it. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions before we get started here? I'm pretty excited. I think the last time I did something like this, I wasn't very good at it. I think I'm a lot better at it now. You'll be the judge of that though, okay? You tell me, chat. Bear with me while we're doing this, because I haven't done this in a little while. It's gonna be fun. And no, I'm not talking about Burnout the video game. We're not gonna be crashing cars into other cars today. All right? All right. Why don't we just dive right into it then? So, as I said, we're talking about burnout today. So, I think a good place to start is, what is burnout? We hear about it thrown around a lot. People talk about it a lot. A lot of times they're talking about it in like a work setting. But it's not always something that only affects people at work. So what is it? So according to WebMD, burnout is a form of exhaustion that's caused by constantly feeling swamped, right? So it happens when we experience too much emotional, physical, and mental fatigue for too long. And now this might sound really familiar. Like, you might be like, Fence, isn't this just stress? And yes and no, but stress plays into burnout, but stress isn't burnout. So when you think about stress, it really is, you can think about it as too much of something. Okay, so stress is too much mental pressure, physical pressure, too much demand on your time or your energy. Okay, whereas burnout is too little of something. Okay, so burnout is having too little emotion, too little motivation, or too little care. Is when you're feeling depleted and used up. So stress might contribute to the feelings of burnout, right? You might have like too much pressure in your life that leads you to feeling too little emotion, having too little care, or feeling depleted about things. Okay, does that make sense? It's pretty interesting, and the two definitely go hand in hand. But it is good to understand that there's things that differentiate the two. So the thing about burnout, and this is something that like affects me a lot, is that burnout can look a lot like depression, right? So like depression and burnout might have similar symptoms, but they're not totally different, but they are they're very different in how they're caused and what you would do to like help yourself with either one of those things. So when you're experiencing burnout, you can usually recover from it by taking some time off, changing your environment, getting away from the thing that is causing you burnout, because it's usually related to just one aspect of your life. And so what we hear about a lot is I get burnt out at work. They're working me too hard. I've got too much going on at my job. I don't feel like I can keep up with it, or I'm not feeling very motivated at my job because they're just not using me the right way. And I don't feel like I get to really excel in my position. And so then like, what's the point, right? That you can see that all of that is stemming from, your job. Whereas depression, depression's medical. It's a mental illness. It is pervasive. It doesn't just stem from one area of your life. It can dominate and affect many different aspects of your life. And it can also play into burnout. Burnout can also cause depression, so that's something to be aware of too. But burnout and depression are different, just the same as burnout and stress are different. So the way that you would treat depression is not the same way that you would treat burnout, and vice versa. So if you're depressed, taking some time off of work probably isn't going to fix your problem. It might contribute to some of the help of that depression, but it's not going to like wipe it out. And conversely, in my own personal experience, it takes a little bit more than just some time off to deal with burnout as well. Like for me, I've had to take a multi-pronged approach to handling my burnout. But we'll get there in a second. So what does it look like? What does burnout look like when it hits? For me, it looks a lot like dread. That's one of the first things that I feel when I'm getting burnt out. So, during this time where I was taking off of work, I was dreading going to work every day. I was dreading opening up my emails, and I was dreading going to the meetings. I was dreading having to drive and to travel. I was dreading to do things that I really loved doing initially at my job. Doing trainings was cool. Meeting young people and teaching them about mental health was cool. But all of a sudden, I found myself dreading doing those things because I felt inadequate. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do a good enough job. I felt like I actually didn't know what I was doing because I was confused as to what my priorities and tasks and responsibilities were at work. I couldn't focus, and that led to greater feelings of like self-doubt and lowered my self-worth, and it really started to compound. And that made me exhausted. So exhaustion is another thing that burnout can look like. This also led to me having a lack of enthusiasm, which is another thing to look out for when burnout hits. You start to feel like you're going through an unfulfilled use of your time, right? So like you're spending your time doing things, but you don't feel like it has any meaning. And that starts to wear on you. And it can create these feelings of hopelessness. It can make you cynical and resentful. And so what I mean by that is, say, again, I'm going to use the work example. I'll use some other examples later, but for the work example, you might start feeling resentful toward your coworkers or your boss. And you might start avoiding them and not wanting to talk to them, not wanting to engage socially in your place of employment. You're trying to alienate yourself and stay away a lot. And those feelings build up to that resentment where you start to blame your boss for the problems that are going on at the job, or blame your coworkers for the way that things are playing out because it's making you feel a certain way. It's contributing to your burnout, right? So you're starting to just like finger guns, pointing fingers everywhere, trying to be like, it's all these people and all these things around me that are making me feel awful. But really you're just feeling burnout, and burnout is huge. Burnout is a massive weight to be on a person. It's not just a buzzword. It actually is something that contributes to a lot of health problems whenever you're experiencing prolonged burnout. And again, we're going to get into that a little bit later too. So it can also affect you at home. Like you might be so burnt out at your job or whatever it is that's burning you out that you start to pull back from work. You start to pull back from your activities that you enjoy, your hobbies. It can affect your friendships, your social connections, the way that you engage with stuff that you love. You might start feeling like you're disinterested in it. You're starting to understand a little bit now why this sounds a lot like depression, because depression causes a lot of these things too. But depression is wide. It's more obtuse. It affects a lot more things and can come from a lot more places in yourself. Whereas burnout is acute. You can usually point to the thing that is burning you out that is the root cause of a lot of these feelings. So again, just good to keep that distinguishment in mind. So there's a few types of burnout that are identified in this article, which if you're just coming in, welcome. Hi, hello. We're doing a different kind of segment for Mental Health Awareness Month today, and we're talking about burnout. So we're going to learn about that today. If you're just coming in, we'll get a link for you in the chat so that you can follow along with the material that I'm sourcing here. It's just this little article on WebMD. I'm not going to cover all of it because there actually is a lot of information, and there's plenty more information out there. But this was a good article that I had found that I thought would, supplement a lot of the points that I wanted to hit today. So take a look if that's your type of thing. If you're the type that likes to follow along and read along, that helps you learn and retain information, then great. It's also good to reference for later. So where we're at right now is we are talking about types of burnout. So in this article, they identify 4, and we're just going to kind of go over them. Okay. So the first type is overload burnout. And this happens when you work harder and harder and eventually become frantic in your pursuit of success. If you experience this, then you may be willing to risk your health and your personal life in order to feel successful. Boy, howdy. I went through this. Definitely experienced overload burnout. I remember I was obsessed for a while. I was just wanting to do so good at my job that like the way that I viewed myself was 100% through the lens of the work that I was doing and how that work was being received. And so I started feeling like that needed to be priority number 1, right? Was what I was doing at work. And so I wouldn't hang out with my friends as much. I wasn't playing as many video games whenever people would invite me to. I was saying no whenever we get invited to things. And I honestly was, for a little bit, willing to work longer than what I was supposed to, given my designated work hours, which obviously was going to put added strain on me, right? But it was all because I wanted to do good at my job. I wanted to be a good mental health advocate, because that's one of my dreams, right? It was one of my dreams to be a mental health advocate and to get out there and do work that impacted people's lives and advocate for people who didn't have as strong of a voice, or people didn't want to listen to their voice. It's near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to work hard at it, but I definitely experienced that overload burnout. I was sacrificing my health and my personal life in order to feel successful. The second type of burnout that is outlined here is called under-challenged burnout. And Matt, you're right. You and I are very similar in this regard based on what you've told me before. I totally relate to a lot of the things that you've shared with us. So under-challenged burnout. So this one, I mentioned a little bit earlier, very briefly, but it happens when you feel underappreciated and bored. Maybe your job doesn't provide learning opportunities or have room for professional growth, right? Like maybe there's not a ladder for you to climb, or there's no clear pathway for you to advance in your job. So if you feel under-challenged, you might distance yourself, become cynical, and avoid responsibilities. How many people here have worked in the food industry? Waiter or waitress, maybe you've worked at a fast food joint, anything like that? Anybody worked any of those kinds of jobs? If you have, you might have experienced under-challenged burnout, because what do? Like you might be able to be like, oh, I can work up to be a manager, right? If they need a manager and if that spot ever opens up. But maybe it doesn't, and then you're stuck waiting tables, or then you're stuck, being a cashier, or cleaning the kitchen or cleaning the dining room, and it sucks. Like at first it's not a big deal. You're there to earn a paycheck. You're making ends meet. Cool. But over time you start to think, dude, I am spending every day in this place for what? Like where am I going? It can make you cynical. It can make you not care about what you're doing because you can't find any value or worth in it. You're not challenged in a way that makes the job interesting to you or makes what you're doing interesting, because it's not allowing you to grow as a person. So you might be dealing with under-challenged burnout there. I've definitely experienced that too. Matt mentioned a pizzeria. I dealt with that at a pizzeria 100%. I've worked several fast food jobs too, and they all made me feel that way. No, not looking down on anybody who works fast food either. I'm saying like I empathize with you. If you've been in those positions, like, what we're talking about. It's tough. Sometimes that's the job that you've got, right? And that's how you're making ends meet. And when you deal with that, you feel that way every day when you're going to work just to take care of your responsibilities. That hurts, man. It actually hurts. So I understand. Prince said he worked at McDonald's once years ago. I didn't have burnout. I had a panic attack. That is interesting. I would love to hear more about that a little bit later. Anxiety and panic attacks are kind of mentioned in this article too. So good reading material in relation to that. You might not have experienced burnout. I've definitely experienced those things before, and not been burnt out whenever I'm in a situation that I'm just not at all comfortable with. I'm sorry that happened to you, buddy. So we're on the third type of burnout now, which is neglect burnout. And this happens when you feel helpless. So if things aren't going right, you may believe that you're incompetent or unable to keep up with your responsibilities. Such burnout can be closely connected to imposter syndrome, which we've talked about on the channel before, which is a psychological pattern in which you doubt your abilities, talents, or accomplishments. If you've ever accomplished something and then felt like you weren't worthy of that accomplishment, you've probably experienced imposter syndrome in some way. So neglect burnout can be very well connected to imposter syndrome, but it's where you believe that you're not able to keep up with your responsibilities because of your lack of competency, and it is outlined by feelings of helplessness. Okay, so that's neglect burnout. I felt that at my last job a lot, like every day, from like year 2 onward. And I can't even blame like the people I was working with necessarily. It was just happening to me. Because I just work just expanded so fast. I couldn't keep up with it. There was too much, and I wasn't the only one. Like everybody was experiencing this, even my bosses. But everyone just kept pushing through it and being like, yeah, it's actually not good for us. This is an unhealthy way to be, but we're just going to keep accepting new work anyway. So it never slowed down, and that feeling never went away. No matter what I tried to do about it. And I tried to do a lot of things about it, let me tell you. But that's neglect burnout. And then the fourth type of burnout here is called habitual burnout. So habitual burnout, they identify here as the most serious phase of burnout. So it happens when your physical and mental fatigue is chronic. Okay, and chronic means that it is prolonged, it is continuous. So you feel sad and your behavior changes. Sometimes you might cross over into depression and suicidal thoughts. It is really important that you seek help at this stage. If you're experiencing habitual burnout, where your physical and mental fatigue is prolonged, it's chronic, it's continuous. Like if you think to yourself, I can't remember when I didn't feel this way, you're probably experiencing habitual burnout. So if that's happening, it's really important that you go get some help. Seek therapy, go talk to your doctor, reach out to your friends, your family members, get support for this stuff, okay? This is something that I had to do too. I got here. Y'all remember my post in Discord like a month and a half ago, whenever I was first taking some time off. It was probably like 2 months ago now. I talked about this very feeling right here. I was suicidal. I had been for months, and I felt helpless. I felt hopeless. I felt like there wasn't anything I could really do to turn my situation around because I had been trying everything. You know, I had taken the time off of work. I had slowed down at work. I had talked to my coworkers about what I was experiencing, talked to my friends, talked to my family. I was going to therapy. I was journaling. I was doing meditations. I was doing all the stuff that I knew I was supposed to do to deal with what I thought was just depression. Because I'm chronically depressed. That's just the way I live my life. But those things weren't working. And you remember how I talked about earlier today where depression and burnout are different? You can try to tackle one, and it is probably not going to be the right solution for the other. I was trying to deal with my depression by treating it like depression because my burnout was exacerbating, rather. It was making my depression worse. But the depression wasn't my problem. It was the burnout, big time. And it created a monster in my depression, and now what I'm dealing with is my depression. But you know, it started that I think it really got triggered by this prolonged habitual burnout that I was experiencing. It's a really difficult place to be, and I don't recommend it for anybody. I wouldn't advise anybody let it slip or slide. If you're feeling like you're going through this, don't ignore it. Okay, it can catch up with you big time, and if you don't pay attention to it and you don't work through it, it can lead to some pretty drastic consequences. I remember saying in my post, I didn't want to die. I wasn't ready to check out anytime soon. That wasn't it. I was super tired of feeling the amount of strain all day long that I was feeling. And I wanted that to stop. And I tried so many things that didn't work that I didn't know that there was any other way. And that's why I was feeling suicidal. To me, that was a way out. And it wasn't anything that I had a plan for or was going to act on, but dang, if I didn't feel that all the time. And that's a really hard thing to deal with all day long, for months and months on end. So, you know, I've experienced 3 of the 4 types of these burnout at that job, and it all just built on each other. Okay, so it definitely affected me. It's probably affected some of you too, because I can see some of you relating here in the chat. Looks like Caden's experienced habitual burnout before. Yeah, I could totally see it linking to your depression. It linked to mine for sure, for sure. It turns into this like crazy cycle that is hard to get out of. Reap said that he's going through that very heavily when he was studying for his board exam. Man, yeah, and you were so deep in it. Like you were so deep in studying and spending all of your free time just focused on work, basically, right? Like this is your board exam, but like you were taking your purpose of your day was to work, is to make sure you were prepared for this test. Yeah, that can build up. So we can see too that like that can happen within like a month-long time frame, or it can also happen on a very extended, like years-long time frame, or anything in between. But burnout definitely affects us. And I remember during that time, Reaps, we weren't talking very much. We weren't playing any games. We weren't really like hanging out much. And I never held any of that against you, of course. But you know, it's one of those things like that's part of how it was affecting you. So you know, I know you can relate on that front too. So, a little bit more information on burnout here and like what this looks like. So we went through the 4 stages, right? Which were overload, underchallenged, neglect, and habitual burnouts. And we got this nice long list of stages of burnout, and I'm not going to break every single one of them down here because it is quite a lot, but we're going to kind of go through them, and then I'm going to point out the ones that you know, I might have a story about. And again, there's information online about this. We're pulling from a WebMD article right now, so if you want to follow along, follow that link that Reaps just put in the chat. So the 12 stages of burnout, right? The first stage is an urgent need to prove yourself. I kind of already went over that, right? I totally wanted to prove myself early on in my job. I was working really, really hard, sacrificing my health in order to prove myself. Working harder is the second stage. You know, you feel the need to do everything yourself and complete tasks as soon as possible. How many people have ever felt that? You know, you ever felt like you need to do everything yourself and you need to get those tasks done right away? That could be a stage of burnout. It could be the second stage of burnout. Working harder. 3, the third stage is neglecting your needs. So you think that the stress of work or activities such as caregiving is normal. You neglect your social life and look down on others who pursue one, and you begin to make small mistakes. Now, what I would say here is you don't necessarily have to look down on others who pursue one. It's not so conscious, right? Because I experienced this. I start neglecting my needs and be like, yeah, it's normal to work hard. It's normal to sacrifice my personal life to do a good job, right? Especially in the West, anybody in the States can understand this like stupid hustle culture that exists and contributes massively to everybody here's burnout. It's so dumb. But we all fall into it in some way because working hard is the norm here. It's expected that, especially in America, like you are going to give your all to your job. Like that's a lot of times what people's worth is measured by. What quality of job do you have? How much money do you make? And what is your position in that job, right? So no wonder that so many of us get burnt out and we get sucked into this cycle of sacrificing our personal needs for our work needs. So again, stage 3, neglecting your needs because you think the stress of these activities is normal. I mentioned that, you know, you might look down on others who pursue one. It doesn't necessarily look like you actively thinking like, that person's hanging out with their friends, what a loser. Now, you're not going to have that thought most of the time. What the thought might actually look like, though, is that person's hanging out with their friends instead of working hard like I am. That sucks. What's wrong with me? And why do I think that sucks? I'm glad for them. That looks nice. I'm kind of jealous. I'm kind of resentful, actually. How come they get to do that and I don't? What makes them better than me? Maybe, like, shouldn't I be better than them? Because I'm working really hard. I'm sacrificing this. How come I don't feel as happy as they seem to feel? Like, that's what that starts to look like. It's not necessarily like you just look down on them. There's these feelings of envy and this bitterness that comes in with your situation and how you kind of project it onto others. At least that's like how it was in my case. Because like you guys know me, I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm really happy for other people's happiness in general. Like I love when other people are doing well. But I cannot tell you how many times I've had those thoughts where I'm just like pissed off about the fact that like other people are doing well and I don't seem to be doing as well. And I feel like I'm working harder than they are. What's the problem with me? What's my problem? You know? And I'm mad at them, but I'm not mad at them. I feel like I'm mad at them on the surface, but I'm really just mad that I don't have what they have when I feel like I've earned it because I'm working hard. So it's a little complicated. It doesn't make you a mean person or a hateful person. It's a natural cycle, I think, of emotion or progression of emotion that takes place whenever you're experiencing burnout. Yeah, the resentment for no reason. It sucks, man. And then you feel guilty about it. Like you feel bad about it. It just kind of like fuels the fire of like self-loathing, right? As if working harder fixes everything or even works in general. Right. All it does is contribute more to whatever the job is that you're working at, right? And like, good for them. You're helping that company out, but like, that's not necessarily helping you out beyond like financial gains, which as we've learned through this channel and the content and just through our own stories that we've shared here together, financial gain is not everything. There's a lot of ways to be rich. Having lots of money is only one of them. So anyway, coming back to the stages of burnout, we just went through the third one, which was neglecting your needs, right? Stage 4 is more interpersonal conflicts. You have conflicts with coworkers, friends, your partner. You don't sleep well. you have other physical complaints, or you become forgetful. I didn't really have conflicts with my partner or my friends. I felt the stresses of some relationships much more prominently when I was experiencing burnout, but I definitely was not sleeping well. I'm still dealing with that right now. For the record, my bedtime has somehow made it to like 4:30 or 5 in the morning, which is like the worst it's ever been in my adult life. And so like that's something that I'm having to work with right now. But that was one of the first things that started happening to me. And then the forgetfulness, oh my God. Like if you guys could see pictures of like my desk, it was like 60% sticky notes. And then I had like Microsoft to-do lists that were reminding me of stuff all the time. And my calendar alerts were going off all the time. And like I was telling people about things that were going on in my life so that they could remind me, because I was forgetting everything all the time, almost immediately after I would like make a commitment to do it. It was so stressful. But that was a big part of what I was experiencing. The fifth stage of burnout is a revision of values. You see things differently and begin to seem insensitive to those around you. Friends and family become secondary to your goals. How many of us have experienced this? How many of us have put our friends and family on back burner because we've got to get work done? That's stage 5. Stage 6, denial. Somehow denial always makes its way in, doesn't it? The stages of burnout, stages of grief, it's always there. But with denial, bitterness and cynicism creep in, and you begin to cut yourself off from other people. You become impatient, intolerant, and angry. Your performance suffers, and then you feel physical discomfort. When I was suffering from like the hardest or the most extreme forms of the burnout, I was cynical. I was like, I had all these reasons why people were like out to get me. I had little patience for anything that went wrong. I felt like I was just getting triggered left and right. Like something could go wrong whenever I was filling out paperwork, and I would just shut down. It was bad, man. So like a most recent example of this, I went to file for unemployment after I left my job, right? Still feeling burnt out, still trying to bounce back from that. And mind you all, I'm still feeling burnout. Not nearly as much. I think that's starting to be pretty even keel with the depression, and the burnout's still diminishing, which is great. It's just taking its time. But I was still dealing with that when I had left my job and filed for unemployment. I filed for unemployment, and I got through the whole process. It took me ages because I was trying to write up like a thoughtful recollection of events that led up to me leaving my job, right? And I was being fair and respectful and all of this and that. I put a lot of thought into my writing. And so I finally did it. I was like, yes, I'm done. I'm good. I felt proud of it. I let Jen see it so she could review it. She was like, that looks good. Great. I went to send it off, went and confirmed everything. And on the very last stage of the process, it told me that my session had timed out and I lost all the progress. I had to start from scratch filling out my unemployment application again. I just couldn't handle it. Something about that just broke my brain. I was so mad. I was so angry in that moment, and it was over something small, right? Like I absolutely could have just sat back down and went through it again. It wasn't that hard. It wouldn't have taken me as much time because I already knew what I was going to write, but I couldn't remember anything that I wrote either. And I couldn't handle it. And so I think I sat here at my computer for 30 minutes trying to work myself back up to getting to it again and getting it done. And I just couldn't, because I would just hit this point over and over again where I was just so mad. And I was so worked up, I had to go lay down. And then I just cried for like an hour. And then after that, I just laid there for another hour. Like I just hugged a pillow because I just couldn't handle it. Whatever I was feeling was just like, I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't process anymore. And that sucked. Like it's almost embarrassing to admit it, because that's like, again, it's like, dude, it's just paperwork. Like just do it again. Not that big of a deal. But it affected me so strongly. If I could have done that differently, I would have. I literally couldn't do anything else. It was like in my mind, in the way that I felt, it was that or like break my keyboard because I was that mad about it. And I'm not the type to lash out. So I went to lay down and try to let those feelings subside. And then I took another crack at it later that night once I had calmed down and everything and got it done. And it was fine. But I was feeling that, man. Like it was the intolerance, the impatience, the anger. I was so deep in it. And that came along with that stage 6 of denial, because I think people were also telling me around that time that I might be experiencing burnout. And I was like, it can't just be that. It can't just be that. It's got to be something worse. It's got to be something wrong with me, you know? So yeah, it was rough, but that's my experience with stage 6, which is denial. Yeah, giga tedious is the way to describe it for sure. For sure, Garrett. Matt, I wanted to throw up. Like I was that stressed out by it for sure. So you're not far off whatsoever. Oh my God, like a whole ebook? That's terrible. They don't make unemployment straightforward anywhere is what I'm learning. Which I guess makes sense. You don't want people to abuse it, but man, sucks. Okay, stage 7 is withdrawal. Dealing with others feels like a burden. You get angry if someone criticizes you, and you may feel disoriented or helpless. You might also try to self-medicate with alcohol or illegal substances. Listen, real talk. My want to have a drink has been concerning over the last like 8 months. Like I write about it in my journal where I'm just like, I need to make sure that I'm keeping that in check. I have a rule. My rule is if I have the thought I need a drink because I've had a rough day, I don't drink because I'm drinking for the wrong reasons. I'm drinking because I'm trying to get away from bad feelings and I'm trying to replace them with alcohol. And that's just a really slippery slope that'll lead you down a path of alcoholism or worse. I've seen it happen a lot. I've experienced it whenever I was younger, and I just don't want to go down that road. So if I have that thought, if that's my motivation to drink, I try not to drink. If I think, man, I could go for a drink right now, it sounds nice, just because, then I'll drink. Because I only have that thought every once in a while, you know? Sometimes it just, it hits the spot. And then it's like, I'm also drinking responsibly. I'm not trying to run from anything. So there's not this outside motivation that's going to lead me down this slope. It's just like, I might have like a margarita or a beer and I'm like, cool. Like that's it, But I've struggled with this in the past when I didn't understand this and I didn't have that rule for myself. But over this last 8 months, that desire has been loud in my brain. And illegal substances is also something that people can turn to for self-medication on this too. For me, it was pot. Smoked a lot of cannabis in the past whenever I was just dealing with heavy stress. I felt overwhelmed and I was dealing with burnout. That was kind of like one of my go-to things. And I try to keep that like out of my home for the most part nowadays, because I just didn't like, once I kind of had this wake up call where I was just like, I don't like how much I rely on this. Even though it does have good beneficial properties and it is medicinal and it can be very helpful and effective. It can also be abused. And I don't think that I was abusing it at one point. And I don't like that. So, but my point is that in stage 7, the withdrawal of dealing with burnout, you might be feeling like everyone else around you is this burden, and that you're getting set off whenever somebody critiques you and you feel helpless and disoriented. You might try to deal with those feelings that seem so out of your hands by self-medicating with alcohol or substances. So be aware of that. And then stage 8, behavioral changes, apathy sets in. Nothing seems to matter anymore. You avoid additional responsibilities. Welcome back, Reeps. Stage 9 is depersonalization. You lose your sense of identity, seeing yourself only as the vessel through which work and responsibilities are completed. Holy crap, just reading that. just like hit me right in the heart. Just reading that, dude. It closes off by saying your life feels meaningless and you begin to neglect your health. Never mind that you've probably already been neglecting your health. I don't think this is where it begins. I think you've already been neglecting your health by this point. But god dang, man, like I had a very real extended period of time where I was just like, my life is about the daily grind of work. And it doesn't mean anything else because that's all I have the energy for. That's all I have the time for. So what else even am I? Who am I? I have struggled with my identity throughout the course of this last year and a half. And part of it did come from my job. Leaving my job was stressful because I had the thought, who am I without that job? I've put so much of myself into it these last 2.5 years. Who the hell am I if I'm no longer the statewide youth and young adult mental health advocate? What is left? I didn't have an answer to that. I thought I had some answers to it, but I didn't believe them. And I didn't connect with them. That absolutely contributed to my feelings of suicidality as well. That depersonalization, it's rough. It's real, and it is pervasive. It sticks with you, man. It goes deep. It's so hard. But that's part of stage 9. That's that depersonalization. And then there's 3 stages left. All right, we're gonna roll through them real quick. One is what I was thinking of whenever Prince mentioned he had a panic attack when he was working at McDonald's at one time. But stage 10, feeling empty, exhaustion, anxiety, and panic start to set in. I was definitely dealing with that. I was always exhausted. I was always anxious of what people thought of me, whether I was doing good enough or not, whether my life had meaning, whether my tasks amounted to anything, or whether I was capable of achieving any of the responsibilities that were being asked of me. And I panicked about that often. Like I would get like really worked up about it. If things seemed like they weren't going to go right, even if they were just neutral, I was just like so worried all the time about them going wrong. And then you have stage 11, which is despair. You may have feelings of self-hatred or depression coupled with suicidal thoughts, which we covered that already. And then the last stage is total burnout. This last phase of mental and emotional collapse requires immediate care. Okay. Again, it's written here as mental and emotional collapse. It's not normal for a person to react to paperwork not working out the right way by losing 2.5 hours to hugging a pillow and trying not to lash out at your inanimate objects. It shouldn't also lead to a person just being completely depleted and drained for the next 5 hours of their day. Losing a day to that sort of thing isn't normal. It's a sign that something else is wrong, something else is going on. When that's happening, you should definitely seek immediate care. You should get some help for this. I remember talking extensively with my therapist every week, and it was always about work. It was always about how I was dealing with work and workload and stress management and my sleep and like all that. And it helped, but it wasn't enough. Like I needed more. I needed to do more to treat it. So all this stuff sounds real doom and gloom, right? And let's see, I know Caden said that they spent the first 15 years of their life thinking it wasn't real and felt like I was watching myself in a movie. It was so strange to realize that was happening. Dude, that's depersonalization. That was what's happening to you right there. That's wild. That's wild. You said it, the first 15 years of your life you were going through that? Chat, do you understand the gravity of his message right here? You could go through that for so long and think it's normal because it's what you know. It's what everyone around you is experiencing. And you seem to just, people just have to keep doing it. People just have to keep going through it. So why should I be any different? It's it's such a problem. It can affect people in such big ways, man. It shouldn't be that way. Nobody deserves to go through that. And nobody should feel like that's the way life has to be, especially for a prolonged period of time. So we already kind of talked about like the burnout causes. This is the part where I'm going to start skimming stuff because I'm not going to go through the whole rest of this article because we've already spent a lot of time here. Okay, so why don't we come back and talk about what we can do about it? You know, what kind of things can help with burnout? So I've got my list here. There's a list on this article as well. I encourage you to check it out. Scroll down to the section that says burnout treatment, okay? Get some tips and tricks on what you can do to start helping yourself with this. And then remember, we're talking about this a lot in context of work and jobs. Burnout doesn't just happen at work. Burnout can happen with anything that you're doing in your life that is causing you to feel like it is wrapping you up in it. And that's all that your life is attributed to. Like if it's, they mentioned caretaking earlier. I've known some people in this channel before who their whole life is dedicated to caring for a family member. You can get burnt out from being a caretaker. That absolutely happens. It happened to my grandfather. I watched it in real time, and it was heartbreaking to see because it dominated his life. And, you know, I admire him for going out of his way and doing the right thing for his family. But I did not think that it ever should have come at the cost of his happiness, and to cause him so much pain. I don't think that anybody needs to go through that. That's not fair to anybody. And he was dealing with burnout, which led to severe depression and more, right? So this can happen to anybody who is overwhelmed by anything in their life to a chronic degree, okay? It doesn't have to just be a job. It doesn't have to just be caretaking. It could be school. It could be a relationship. This happens a lot in relationships, okay? So look out for that there too. Whether it's romantic or maybe you have a toxic friend who just like, keeping up with them is very, very draining on you. You can get burnt out from that. So it's not just work, okay? It can affect you in a lot of different aspects of your life, or rather, it can come from a lot of different aspects of your life. Okay, so what can help? I'm going to give you my list, my personal list of things that helped me and are still helping me, and that I use on a regular basis that actually kept me alive and kept me sane even when I was dealing with the highest degrees of my burnout, okay? So first and foremost, taking breaks, getting some rest, taking time off. Super important. If you're from the West, just the notion of me telling you should take some time off makes you cringe. Why? You feel bad for being someone who has to take time off, right? What's wrong with you? It's a shameful thing to do. You're not working every day like every other honest American. What's wrong with you? No, dude, that sucks, okay? Give yourself some time off. It's not a bad thing to do. It's not shameful. Your peers aren't going to think that you're a piece of crap for it. And even if they did, screw them. Okay? Because they're also suffering from the same thing that you are at that point, and they haven't yet figured out that it's okay for you to prioritize your own self and your well-being. Take some time off. Take some breaks. It's important. You need to do it. If you're working a full-time job with any sort of benefits, you probably have paid time off, vacation days, sick days. Use them. It's tempting to just bank them up all the time, but they're there to use, dude. Please use them. I didn't learn this until 2 years into my job that like I had so much, I accrued so much PTO that I could take 1 day off every other week if I wanted to for the whole year. For the whole year. Now everybody doesn't have that much PTO. I did, and I didn't realize that until 2 years in. I could have been having 3-day weekends on a regular basis. I could have been tacking on my sick time to the end of like a Memorial Day weekend, which, hey, that's coming up this week. If you have some PTO, put in for some time off. Turn your 3-day weekend into a 4-day weekend. It's that simple. Just do it. You have it. You earn it. You work for it. Why aren't you using it? It's there for you. Please use it. building yourself island days throughout the year is super duper important. And that was something that I wish I had learned sooner, because when I started doing that, it helped me a lot. And I don't think that I actually would have survived as long as I did in my job if I hadn't started doing that in the first place. Which again, I might have started doing it too late, but I would say that the worst parts of my burnout experience started last November. And I had started building those island days around October. And I kept doing that throughout the end of my tenure at my last job. And it kept me going, okay? It kept me going, even whenever I was already like in a bad spot. So if you do this ahead of time, if you use it as preventative measures to prevent yourself from experiencing burnout or getting too deep in burnout, you can actually save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of hassle. Use your time. Take time off. It's so worth it. The second thing that I would do is set some boundaries. So I have never had this experience before because I never worked a salaried position. But even when you're working hourly, I think this can still happen where like sometimes, depending on who you work for or depending on what you're doing, you can feel strong-armed into devoting more time than you should be devoting every day to that thing. If it's caretaking, if it's your job, if it's your relationship, whatever's causing you burnout. There are situations we find ourselves in where our boss asked us to stay late and work late today. Drink! You don't have to do that. Thank you. Appreciate the hydration. You don't have to do that. Now, I understand everybody's situation may be different. You might feel like, Vince, you don't get it. I have to do this or this and this will happen. Maybe that's the case. Worst case scenario in that situation, maybe it's time to look for somewhere else to work. Okay? You owe that to yourself. I'm not saying it's a quick fix or a simple solution. I'm saying it's worth trying to explore that avenue if that is what you're having to go through on a regular basis. Set boundaries. For me, 5 o'clock. The end of every day. 5 o'clock, I'm done. You want me to do something else? If I get an email that comes in at 5:01 asking me to look at something, I'm doing that tomorrow morning. I'm done. I'm done today. I have to be done, or I'm going to sit here for 2 more hours, and it's going to be 7 o'clock. Jen's going to be asking me why I let my dinner get cold, and I'm going to be all frumpy and frustrated for the rest of the night. Like, I did that to myself. I don't do that. Don't do that to yourself, all right? Set that boundary, all right? You got working hours, adhere to the working hours. Don't come in early. Don't stay late. Like, if there's something you're trying to accomplish because it brings you a personal sense of satisfaction, that's one thing. You do you, by all means. But if you are feeling burnt out, or you're worried that you're becoming burnt out, this is one way that you can try to get ahead of it, all right? Set some boundaries for yourself. It worked for me. It helped me a lot. I was actually doing that really early on. Within the first year, I figured out that I needed to start doing that. And it helped me get through a lot of the early signs of burnout that I was experiencing. And I think it didn't hit me as hard because of that. Make sure that you're doing something you enjoy daily, okay? This is important. This is important. You remember that stage where they're talking about like your life is dedicated to work and the only purpose that your life has is to work and contribute to that place of employment or whatever that thing is that you're feeling burnt out on, taking care of your family or being a good partner in your relationship. If that's what you wake up and feel like your life is about, you need to work some other stuff in that you enjoy into your daily routine. Doesn't have to be huge, but I made sure, for instance, that like I played some video games every day. And now there are some days where I didn't do this, so I shouldn't say every day, but I tried to make sure that I worked in some game time every day because that's something I like to do, something I enjoy. Does that mean I was sitting there and playing games for 4 hours every day? No. Sometimes it was just 30 or 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But whatever it was, I tried to work it in because it's something that I could look forward to, something that I know I enjoy, and it was something that was just for me. It was just for me, and I was actively making that decision for me. Other times it was like I wanted to watch this show. I made sure I watched 1 episode of that show a day. Or I took the time that I had at night when most people would normally be sleeping and I listened to some music or I wrote a song or something like that, right? Just work something in to your daily routine that you do every day that's just for you because you enjoy it. And then The fourth thing that I did is work mindfulness into my routine, which is on this list, by the way. Some of these things you're going to be hearing me say are on this list that's in the article that, is being provided to you in the chat. So that's cool. Some of these things overlap, but I'm just talking about my own personal stuff that I use. Mindfulness is a big deal. You hear that thrown around a lot too. And I think when you hear the word mindfulness, you think of some trendy bullcrap of somebody just sitting there like meditating and like doing this, or like sitting in the grass with their shoes off or something, like something that just pops up in media a lot, right? I'm going to do yoga, right? I'm not saying none of those things help or work, but that's not all that mindfulness is, okay? And I wish it didn't take me so long to for this to hit me, but it was just the other day I was talking with my therapist about this, and she asked me, "Are you practicing mindfulness? And are you meditating?" And I was like, I used to meditate on a regular basis, and I don't really anymore. She's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I mean, but the other day, I did go outside with my cup of tea, and I was sitting there, and I was just kind of watching the trees, and it was only for maybe 15, 20 minutes, but I was just kind of looking at the trees, and there I was there with my tea, but I had all this other stuff that I needed to be doing and whatever. I just wanted to get outside and get some fresh air." She's like, "You were meditating." I was like, "What?" That's meditation, dude. You don't have to be sitting there in complete silence in this antechamber of a room where there's no sound coming in at you and it's just you and your thoughts. That can be meditation, but that's not all it is. Meditation is literally just you being in a space and being present in the moment. Okay? That looks like sitting on your balcony with a cup of tea, and you're not on your phone, you're not talking to your buddy or your partner, or you're not trying to write something, you're just sitting there. You're meditating. Because there's a thing that starts to happen to you where your thoughts start to change, you start to, experience the moment, you notice things that are going on around you, you notice things that are going on inside of you. And it's different than when you're focused on a task. So if you give yourself any time at all throughout any of your days to meditate, just take some time to hang out and not be purposefully doing anything other than just being in that space for the moment. You can do it for 5 minutes a day. It'll help. Trust me. Work that into your routine somewhere. Caden's got a cool example. His meditation is learning. He loves listening to lectures about science and nerd stuff. Can't get enough of it. It resets my brain. If that's what works for you and that's meditative for you, where you can you're hanging out and that's the only thing you're doing, is you're just taking information in. Cool. If you think about it, that's all that you're doing whenever you're sitting and being present in the moment anyway, right? You're absorbing information. You're being aware of it. You're able to just be present in the moment and be aware of what's going on with you and around you at that particular point in time, and you're not thinking about the future, and you're not thinking about the past, then that's meditation. Work that into your daily routine. Another thing that you can do to help, I said it earlier, reach out for support. Get some support, man. Talk to your friends about it. You're gonna think it's dumb. Why would my friends care that I'm going through this? What I'm going through seems so trivial, so small, they're not even gonna understand what I'm going through. Dude, give it a shot. Say something to them. I'm telling you, you're gonna be surprised. They might not experience the same exact thing that you are, but chances are they've experienced some form of it, and they're gonna be like, "Dude, that reminds me of," and they're gonna tell you, what it reminds them of. They've probably experienced some form of it themselves. There's something that happens in that moment where you have this solidarity with another person who's experiencing a similar thing, and it changes the way you feel about yourself. Open up to your friends. Open up to your family. Let them know that you're going through this so that they can talk to you about it. You can talk to them about it. They're not going to fix it for you. They can't. But I can't tell you the value of being connected to other people during that time where you're struggling. It makes a huge difference in the outcome. It makes a huge difference in the amount of hope that you feel about your situation. You isolate yourself, it makes it so much harder. So please don't do that. Please make sure that you do connect with people around you. Talk about what's going on. Seek out some support. And the last thing I have here, which is not, it might sound weird, but it's actually pretty straightforward, is changing your environment. I talked about this in a TikTok a while ago, but changing your environment can change your mindset. and it doesn't fix your problem. It doesn't all of a sudden make you not burnt out or, give you a solution to what you're facing that's causing you to feel burnt out. But changing your environment can change your mindset and the way that you frame what's happening to you quite a lot. For me, that looks like stepping outside on my balcony to go and look at the trees. Okay, getting outside of my apartment, the apartment that I experience a lot of that burnout in, because that's literally where I was working for the last 2.5 years, is a big deal. I think a certain way when I'm in my office because I have been conditioned to do specific things when I'm in my office, like working. So changing that environment, going outside is different. I start to think differently. So it could be as simple as going out on your balcony or going outside your backyard or front yard or whatever, somewhere close. Or I love going to the park when I think about changing my environment. I don't do this all the time, but every time I do it, it has a massive effect on me. Going for a walk in the park and sitting down on a bench and just people watching and looking at what trees are blooming or what's going on with the grass or what kind of cars are driving by or what's happening in that moment, right? It is so drastically different than what's going on in the place that brings me stress, which is my working environment, in my case, that it helps me to reframe everything. And I have different types of thoughts. I come up with different types of solutions. I think about my problems in different ways. Changing your environment can be a really helpful tool for dealing with your burnout. So again, to recap, this is my list, but this is what I think it helps me. Maybe it helps you too. Take some breaks, take some time off, set boundaries for yourself, do something that you enjoy daily, work mindfulness into your daily routine, talk it out, people that you're close with, and change your environment. Okay. So I think we're gonna kind of start to close it up there. I do want to hit you with some things because I'm a gamer and a lot of y'all are gamers too. There were some games that helped me deal with burnout during this heavy time. And so here's just a couple of them, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. As many of you know, I've been streaming that game. I streamed it for a long time before I took my break, and I actually didn't touch the game for about a month because I really, really wanted to stream it. And I was kind of agonizing about that for a little while. And then eventually I was like, no, I'm just going to keep playing this game because I've been looking forward to it. It makes me feel good when I'm playing it. And I feel like this is a great time for me to just play that game and enjoy it. So I did play a little bit more. But that game it helped me so much. It was something that I knew I was going to enjoy every time I sat down with it. But it opened itself up to let me address a lot of different aspects of the burnout that I was feeling because I could just explore in that game for ages and find new stuff and collect things and admire the environments and listen to the music and enjoy the battles and the characters that I love so much. I just got to kind of revel in all of that, and it was scratching all of these itches that I needed scratched whenever I didn't feel like I could do anything for myself or could enjoy my time. I love listening to good music. I love admiring art and looking at pretty scenery. I love, waxing nostalgic over things that I've loved before. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was great for that because that's totally all that game is, And I love immersing myself in a good storyline. That game just checked a lot of boxes for me. So that was something that I just loved playing while I was dealing with the heavy burnout, and it helped me. Unicorn Overlord was another game that I was playing during this time, and that one helped me because I was dealing with a lot of this overthinking, running in circles in my head and agonizing over things I was doing wrong or could be doing better. And Unicorn Overlord is a strategy game. It's like a tactics game. And every time I sat down to play that game, one, its music was really cool, which is something I always love about a good RPG. But its music would suck me in right away, and I'd stop thinking about whatever, self-deprecating cycle I was stuck in. And then as soon as I started playing the game and like getting into the battles, because there's so much going on tactically, so many different combinations you can work out with your characters to like play off of abilities and synergize well to deal with like enemy synergy. It just got really complex. And so that would just take over. Like that's all I'd be thinking about while I was playing that game. And that was great for me. That was great for me because it was giving me a break from the thoughts that were just circling. When I was like, oh my God, I'm not working. Oh my God, I'm not good enough to work. Oh my God, this always happens. My bipolar sucks. My depression sucks. I'm not, like all these things I was thinking about myself I was feeling less than. Like all of a sudden that wasn't there anymore because I was just like, I have to figure out how I'm going to take that bridge so that I can capture this outpost, but there's an archer that's standing up there that can shoot all of my guys every time I engage in battle. How do I deal with them? Like I had to figure that out. So like that was much more fun for me to work out and easy to engage in. So like Unicorn Overlord is a super cool game that definitely helped me out and pulling out of this like cycle that I was experiencing while I was faced with burnout. And a couple others worth mentioning. A lot of you in the server have been seeing me play Stellar Blade. Freaking phenomenal game. Absolutely recommend it. It is one of the greatest games I've played in modern day because it remembers that it's a video game. And anybody who's been a gamer for longer than 10 years knows what I'm talking about. Games tend to forget that they're video games. They ask you, the player, to buy in so hard to the experience that they're providing. You need to play it the way that they intend you to play it. And you should experience it this way, the way that it's intended. Video games weren't always like that. And I'm not saying that all games are, but Stellar Blade is a game that remembers that it's just a video game in a world where video games have kind of forgotten what they are. It's fun. There's a lot of stuff in there that's just fun to do, fun to play, fun to explore, fun to see. And it doesn't ask you to do it in any specific way. It just says, hey, here's this fun scenario for you. Enjoy it for the next 15 minutes. Wasn't that cool? All right, move on to the next fun thing we've got for you. It's good stuff, man. Selfie! What's up, dude? Oh my God. With the sub love, is that?
Video games for the video man.
Video games for the video man. Am I the video man? I'll take it. Dude, thanks for the sub love, man. Rock and roll. How are you doing, Soapy? You came in at the tail end of our talk. We've been talking about burnout today. I'm doing a mental health segment for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yoo-hoo!
Good to see you, buddy. I'm the video game. Are you saying you can't play me, Caden? Y'all, you can't play me. All right? I see what you're up to. But I was talking about games that resonated with me while I was dealing with burnout and that were helping me to recover from it, and still are. So I mentioned FF7 Rebirth, Unicorn Overlord, Stellar Blade, and last but not least is Helldivers. Holy crap. I want to say again, a big shout out to CJ, Competent Juggernaut, who reached out to me early on after I had made my post about, feeling suicidal and struggling really heavily with my mental health and on the fence. And I was just like feeling kind of lost and super vulnerable because I don't usually put myself out there that way. But not only CJ, a bunch of people reached out to me, which you guys are lifesavers and are so kind and caring. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for giving a crap about me, a guy that most of you have never met. I appreciate you so much. You've done a lot for me just by being there. So thank you for that. But CJ had reached out and he likes to play games to connect with people. And we hadn't hung out in a little while. And he was like, it would be cool to play Helldivers together. And I was like, I don't have that game. But you're right. I'm interested in it. It looks like a lot of fun. He ended up getting it for me so that we could play together. And I got more into that game than I thought I would. And I've since been playing it with him and a bunch of other friends and the people on the fence too. And that game is such a freaking rollicking good time. It's hilarious. It always makes me laugh. It's always engaging. It's always interesting to me. The lore building is fun. It has such a smooth multiplayer experience, minus the friends list system, which still sucks butt. However, it's forgivable because the rest of the game is so solid. That game has been getting me through these days as well. It's just a great way to unwind and connect with people that I care about. So shout out to CJ for hooking me up with that and helping me out. And shout out to freaking Helldivers and the devs who I'm for some reason forgetting right now. I just keep forgetting who the hell is Arrowhead. So Arrowhead Game Studios. There you go. Thank you, Arrowhead Game Studios, for creating something that has been so helpful to me during a very difficult time in my life. Video games are freaking medicine, dude. Like, I get it. They can be abused like anything, and they can definitely be a form of addiction if you mistreat your time with them. But I've always stood by it, and I'll continue to stand by it. I will die on this hill that video games are one of the greatest boons to mankind. Play is so important in this world and to our well-being and just to our advancement as a species and a society. Play is so important. What better way to play sometimes than with a video game, man? There's so many ways you can play in a video game that you just can't in any other way, in any other entertainment medium. Incredible. They have saved my life more than once, so thank you, video games. But yeah, with that, I would like to close our Burnout discussion. Thanks for, I'm not going to say come into my TED Talk, because my name's not Ted, and we did maybe more than talk. I don't know, but it's probably not that official. But thanks for sitting in. Thanks for coming and learning about Burnout with me and hanging out and sharing some of your stories alongside the discussion as well. I think that's been super helpful to help paint a picture of what Burnout can actually look like, more so than just, what these articles tell us and what it says on paper. Super cool.